Hello everybody, the Network Berg here. Hope you've been doing well. This video is going to be a very beginner friendly and basic video just to teach you how to set up a MikroTik router from the beginning and to get it to do things like do DHCP and connect to the LAN and also even connect to the internet. So it's going to be pretty exciting. We're going to be using EVNG, which is something I've been using for a while now, and it's really great emulation software in order to just set that up from the computer. But I've got some friends here as well that we could potentially do some other interesting things on if we want some form of a physical lab, but I'm going to just dive straight in using a emulated router. So let's quickly get on that. Let's get in Eve, and the first thing that I want to do is just get a node up, and we're going to connect a MikroTik router here. I'm not going to use version 7 because this is like really cool stuff that's coming in the future, but it's not up and running yet. So I'm just going to use version 6.4.7, which I think is currently the latest version at the date of this video, but it might update. And I'll just choose a different icon for it, just so that it looks unique on my topology. So there we have a little MikroTik router. I'm just going to connect this to my virtual LAN on Ethernet 1, and then I'm just going to start up the device. So this device is now booting up, and it's going to act like any normal MikroTik router. So that's why I would suggest maybe if you want to get into studying it doesn't matter who the vendor is, it could be Cisco, Juniper, Howie, anything. Get yourself an emulator just so that you can get that actual hands-on experience. So I'm just going to jump onto this MikroTik router now. It's the default login credentials. I might have to type it back in. Yes. And there we go. So I've got a brand new MikroTik router on here. So let's just quickly see. Is there any IP address? Yes, I'm getting an IP address from DHCP that was assigned, but I just quickly want to see if I can access this MikroTik. So I'm going to jump onto Winbox, which is the tool that we can use to access the MikroTik devices. You can access it over MAC address or IP. So I'll just use the MAC address for now, and I'm going to connect. So you can get this tool from www.mikrotik.com. It's in the download section, and it works pretty great. It's a graphic user interface, but if the router has an IP, you can also SSH or Telnet into it and manage it that way. So we can have a look at the interfaces. I've only assigned 4 interfaces to this virtual router, but we could have pushed that up to as many as we wanted to. And there's also different physical router boards that have various different ports, like you saw what I showed you earlier. Like the Haplite has 3 ports, and then the 951 that I showed you has 5 ports. So first thing we want to do is just assign an IP. We've already got this over the DHCP, but I want to assign my own IP address. So to assign an IP, you can just click on the plus, and then let's just give it a 192.168.246.20/24, because that is the subnet range that my virtual LAN runs on. It is on Ether 1. So I'm just going to apply that. So now if I go into CMD, I should be able to ping that address. And I can. So let's quickly open up another Winbox session, just see can I connect to that IP 192.168.246.20. Yes, I can. Awesome. So we've given the router a basic IP address. Let's just head back to that topology, and then you'll see there Ethernet 1, it's got those IP addresses, the one from DHCP and then the .20 that I assigned. So my virtual LAN can actually get to this now. So what I would like to do now is maybe assign a DHCP server on the MikroTik myself. And like I said, this is going to be very basic just to get everybody going. But let's jump back on the MikroTik. And let's go into our IP, and then there's a DHCP. You get DHCP client and you get DHCP server. So client is what the router used when I booted it up the first time to get its own IP address. So if I go there, you'll see there's Ether1 has been set to obtain a DHCP address. But if I go to the DHCP server, I can actually configure this MikroTik to hand out its own IPs. So I'm going to do this now by just maybe going into my IP addresses, and let's just assign a new subnet, a new IP address range. So let's imagine this will be our LAN, our computers that will connect to the router. So I'm going to use something like 172.16.0.1/24 for my LAN, and I'll just put that on Ether 2. So that's been assigned to Ether 2 now. And if I go into my DHCP, there's two ways to do this. The easy way is to just run the wizard. It's real simple, real quick. So you just hit this DHCP setup, and it asks you which interface will be the DHCP server port. So I want that on Ether 2. I can go next. It asks you what is the address space. So that looks correct to me. It will be addresses in that range. What's the gateway? 0.1, that's right. And here you can also specify which addresses you want to give out. So think about if you wanted to exclude some addresses, maybe like a printer or a server or some other device, you could do that here. So these are just the IP addresses that we are going to assign out. And I think MikroTik actually assigns the IP addresses out in reverse. So 254 will be the first IP somebody gets, but I might be wrong. We'll see. DNS server, so that you could even make Google, but I'll leave it as that because that is the DNS server that my router is getting. Lease time, we can leave it as that. And there we go. The DHCP is being configured. So we can quickly test this just by adding another router. I'll just make another MikroTik. And that's fine. Going to save that. And then this MikroTik, I'm just going to connect up to Ether 2. And then I'm going to start this up. So while we wait for that to start up, actually it won't even take that long. Let's just see if we can access it. That's what I like about the virtual equipment. It's real quick, but MikroTik devices typically don't take long to start either. Admin, blank. And then I just want to see, do I have an IP address? I might have to put the DHCP client on the second router, we'll see. No. IP address, print. Now it's getting an IP address. And there we go, I'm correct. So 254, it gave us that first IP address, and this is the new range. So I'm just going to use this MikroTik behind as a LAN example. But let's say I wanted to go to the internet. If I was on this MikroTik router and I tried to ping 8.8.8.8, it would fail, which isn't nice. So if I was a home user, this might be a problem for me. Now I already know this other router doesn't have a route. Don't worry too much about any of the routing aspects. I just want you to understand that this should be its gateway. So this MikroTik's gateway is the other MikroTik. So I just want to check, do I have a route? Yes. So I know how to get to the internet, but our issue is my virtual network and also the internet doesn't know about my 172.16 address space. So it's failing. So to get that to work, we actually need to implement NAT, network address translation, and that is very easy to set up as well. So let's just jump back into the actual router, not the client, not the person that wants internet. And let's just go into our IP firewall. And then we can just go to NAT, hit the plus. We can go in and we can change. There's various different options here. And I'm going to teach you about all of this stuff. This is just to get you a basic router up and running so it gets internet connectivity and some of the do's and don'ts when you do bring up a router for the first time. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up a source NAT, and what we're going to say is anything going out of Ethernet 1, which is the WAN or to the internet, we're going to say we want to masquerade that, and we're going to apply. So what a masquerade rule does is whenever, let me just go back to that topology. So what the masquerade rule is going to do is this 172.16 IP, it's going to try and get to the internet. when it gets to this router, the router will then masquerade the IP address, that 172.16.0.254 IP, behind the IP address of its Ethernet 1 address or interface. So if I go back into this router and I try and ping 8.8.8.8 now, we should have success. So we do have success. We can get to Google's DNS server, and the reason is because that traffic is now being natted. Great. So that's some very basic form just to get us internet connectivity. Let's jump back into this boy. So there's a few extra things that I just want you to take note of when you do bring up a router for the first time, because you've done it. You've got internet on this device now, so this is fantastic. But there's some things that I believe is best effort whenever you do bring a new router up, especially if it's for your house or maybe for a business, and that would be to change a few details. So if you go into your IP addresses and you go to your services, these things, it might seem confusing, but the things you don't need, you can disable, like this API and FTP and this www. Just go ahead and disable that. That's what I tend to do whenever I bring up a new router. Other things that I would suggest is you could also change these ports to something that's not standard. So SSH, might make this something like 2204 or 2202 or 2201. So let's maybe do that. So let's just keep the port as is, but make it 2301. And the Winbox port, that I'm going to leave default because I can't change that from the Winbox application. And the other thing that I want you to also do is, as you see, there's an available from. So if you double click back in, you can actually click on there. And what available from means is, it means you can only access these management ports from a specific IP. So I might only want to be able to access this from my virtual LAN range, as well as you can hit on this arrow to the bottom to create a new row, and maybe also from the LAN range. So I'm going to apply that, and I'm going to do the same for the Telnet and Winbox. Actually, let's just make the Telnet only come in from the WAN, and let's make Winbox also come in from both address spaces. And we're going to test this now as well, just so that you can see what happens. Let me just redo that. Apologies. 246.0/24 172.16.00/24. All right. So now I've set up available from addresses. So what this means is, if I, let's say, open up a PuTTY session and I go to 192.168.246.20, that's the IP address I gave the router. If I want to connect on the Telnet port now and I just hit open, it's actually not going to work. But if I Telnet in now from 192.168.246.20, if I use that port 2301 and I hit open, now it works. And because it's an available from address, so only my virtual LAN can access it. If I try and do that from this other router that I've got connected here, which only has that 172.16 IP, if I try and Telnet to this router now from this device, you see the connection is refused. So this will just save you some time to protect against unwanted issues. You don't want your device compromised, so please make sure you update those ports. Another thing that I think is pretty big is your users. So if we go into our system and we go into our users, make sure your admin account, you have two options. You can leave the admin account, it's fine. You can keep an admin account, but make sure you also try and add an allowed address for this, so that people can't just use the address wherever they are. And then The other spectrum, there is a password. So make sure that your admin account password isn't something basic. You saw when we started this up the first time, it was admin and blank. If that's your default credentials, people will get into your equipment super quickly, and that sucks. So let's change this password to something else. So let's make it maybe like MikroTik @123, MikroTik with a capital M @123. Wow, those are too many characters. MikroTik @123. I think I mistyped something. There we go. So we can apply that. So now if I want to access this device, I need the proper credentials. So let's do that. And I'll try and SSH in now. 192.168.246.20. And oops, connection refused. That's fine. It's probably a typo I made somewhere. Let's just reconnect. So if I try and open up this terminal, it will also prompt me for my credentials. There we go. So now you need to authenticate, else you can't connect, and change some things here. Something else very basic, but it'll save you time as well. That would be just your identity. So when you go into system identity, it's nice to just give all your routers different names. So just so that you're aware of what you're working on. If all of them is just called MikroTik, it's going to confuse the heck out of you, especially if you start working with hundreds or even thousands of the devices. So I might call this the networkberg home. I'll apply that, and that will now be the new name of the router. One more thing that I quickly want to do is just jump on here, and let's go into MikroTik. Now this will take us to the MikroTik site, and here we can go to the software. So as I was saying, here you can download Winbox. There's also a nice bandwidth test application you can download now, but I'm not going to get into that for the basic setup. Now what we could do is we could actually upgrade our MikroTik to a new version. I would always recommend going for the stable version. So you can find your device here. So depending on what model you're running, you can find the correct software image to install onto it. So I'm just using the cloud hosted router right now. It's a trial version, and 6471. Okay, so that is the current version I'm using as well. So I'm not going to change too much, but what you could do is you could download this image. So let's just see, is it the raw disk image? So let's just download this quickly. I just want to see what is downloaded. That looks correct. So once we've downloaded, I just want to show you how to quickly upgrade your firmware, because this will also save you so much time, and it's very important. If you don't upgrade your firmware, it will leave you exposed, and then hackers can potentially also come in. So this is just my downloads folder. So I'm just going to go into the CHR, and there is my CHR. So that's the software image. So I'm just going to quickly, wait, maybe I'm one version behind. Let's see. I am. So we can actually upgrade this. So what you could do is go into your file system, you go into files, and then you can just copy this file, this firmware image or the software image into your file directory. And once it's uploaded, you could just restart your MikroTik router, and that would upgrade you to the newer version, which is so cool. So let's do that. Let's do a system reboot. Oh no, I need to log in again because this is the other screen we had the first time. MikroTik 123 system reboot. And that's also nice. You see where we failed login attempts. The MikroTik will tell you about that when you try and log in the first time. All right, so the device is busy restarting. I'm just going to fill in this password so long. MikroTik @123. Once it's ready, you should see it come back up in this neighbors list. So I'll just quickly try and refresh that. There we go, back up. Let's connect. and it's the same version. But anyways, so this is how you would go about just updating your router OS version. You just copy the file into the file directory and just reboot. Alternatively, what you could do is you could also go to System, and I believe it's Packages. Yes. And then from the packages, you can just click here, check for updates. Actually, it didn't. That is right. And this should work. So let's do it through here, because I think because this is a CHR, the file upload doesn't work for what I'm doing. So let's just do it this way. So let's do a download and install. Could not save package, probably because I don't have enough space. So let's just delete this old one. Let's try again. There we go. So it's busy downloading the new package. It's going to install it now for us as well. But typically with the physical devices, if you just drag it into the file system and reboot, done and dusted. The CHR seems a little bit different, but that's fine. Totally fine. I mean, this is how I've learned something new. So let's just wait for the device to come back up and confirm that it's actually updated. There we go. Yes, and it is the new version now. Great. All right, so we've got the new version installed, 647.1. Awesome. So everything's updated. Anything that you see that's grayed out like this is disabled, but you could enable that just by right-clicking or installing. There's the enable button. And there we go. So now you've got a router that's doing NATing, that's handing out DHCP. You've got internet access. I've shown you a few basic tips regarding just a bit of the security of the device and how to just upgrade the firmware or the software image on the device. I hope this has been informative. I'd like to thank you for watching. If you've learned anything new, please feel free to subscribe to the channel and like and share this video. Thanks. Bye.